You got to check your corners and make sure you're not pulling too hard on them. Otherwise they'll pull up like this. That especially happens when you're putting the trim on afterwards. But so make sure that they're lying flat. Especially if you're moving it around like I am. The glue on this Steam-A-Seam is just tacky. It's not a glue, or not really a glue. It just holds it slightly. Kind of like sticky note, those sticky note papers. So you can reposition afterwards. That's steps 1 and 2. Now step 3. Use your applique scissors and you're going to trim off all the excess. And I leave the pins in this until I'm finished, just so that it doesn't move around so much. So this is where duckbill appliques are nice, because the fabric, as I said, lays over this bill, and you're not cutting the fabric underneath, you're just cutting the lining. If you're only making one vestment, they're not worth the investment, unless you get them on sale. Occasionally, they are on sale. They usually cost about $12 to $15, but you can get them for $6 sometimes. You have Joann's 50% off coupon. You can get it for $6. So now you have this nice 1/4 inch lining edge. Which is going to get covered. So there's no raw edges here. Now, can you put the lining, supposing you don't want trim at the edges. And sometimes I make a vestment that I don't. And you can do the right sides together, turn inside out thing. Clip your curves and then turn inside or turn right side out and press it. That works. You have to be really careful here at the bottom that you don't get your puckers and it doesn't roll over on you. But it works. And if you're used to that kind of sewing, it's fine. As I say, this is the way the old vestments were made, and there's a reason for that. I mean, the vestment lays nice and flat. And especially if you have interlining, it's hard to do the right side. Suppose you can, but it's hard to do right sides together, turn inside out, because you have that extra layer of fabric in there. You have to base them together along the edges as one fabric, and then do right sides together, turn inside out, so they don't shift around on you. step 3. Now we're ready for the last step, and that is putting the trim down. As I said, I'm using this one. And for this, if I was using a really narrow trim, I would use the narrow stitch witchery, but this is about the same width. Let me double check this. If it's not, I'll have to go to the small one. It's exactly the same width as the stitch witchery, which means I can use it. I just gotta be really careful not to let it stick out, because if it does, then I have to go to the other one. I'm gonna put this side up, yes. So, I'm gonna try this, see how it works. I may have to go to this thinner one. I put them together, and as I go with the stitch witchery, I put them together so that you can break off small pieces and put it under it, but it's not necessary. I mean, it's maybe if it'll work just as well putting them together like this. Now, I'm going to start it. Once that end is glued, it's easier to work with. And what I want to do is I'm going to follow this edge. I want mine right on the edge, because, and as I go around it, you can't see because the iron's in the way. See, the steam will make it break. But it is easing in around the corner. But as I get down here to this corner, I'm going to have to actually put little tucks in it. And this is what I explained on the seminar, if you watched the seminar video. It's called ironing backwards and forwards to put those little tucks in. And as I say, this is not difficult, it's just tedious. This takes the longest. This is the longest part of the job. You might have thought putting the trim on the front was long, but not. So see here, I'm beginning, see how this wants to buckle? Now it may ease around, but I'm probably going to end up with a small tuck in there. What I do is I iron up to the place where it wants to bend, and then I skip over the top of it. Stitch witchery wants to stick out. Stick over the top of it and come backwards. Now I'm bending the iron up so that you can see what I'm doing, I hope. And when you do that, you put a little tuck in there, usually. Didn't take, probably because I had the iron bent. No, it did. See, there's a tiny little tuck there. Some tucks will be larger as you get to harder corners. Now see, this one wants one. I'm going to skip over the top of it and come back, and it put a little tuck right here. Hardly noticeable. right there. Now, if you pull too hard on your trim as you're going around the corner, you're going to get it to pull up like this. So make sure that it's always flat and you're not putting too much tension on it. Now, here's that part at the bottom. That's why I did this one first, was to show you what I was talking about. See, it's going to meet right there, even though the lining didn't go all the way up. The trim will, and it's going to meet that edge right there. Ladies ask, well, I made this is my first vestment. I really make a lot of mistakes on it. Well, as I say, most priests, most people won't even know the difference. Show it to them. Just prove it. Prove me wrong. Show it to them. Don't point it out. Just show it to them. See what they say. And see if they see. Ask them if they see any mistakes. And but let's say you made a drastic mistake. It's very noticeable to you. It's going to bother you. You don't want your priest to have it. Well, don't throw it away. There are young seminarians out there that would love to have those vestments. There are missions that would love to have those vestments. They won't care if it's the ugliest thing in creation. And that goes for, the seminarians tend to like nice things, but heck, they'll take anything that's free. I mean, they're young. They can't afford vestments. So to have one of their own, of course you can always put it up on eBay too. Though eBay there's getting to be a flood of cheap vestments from overseas now showing up on eBay that are not well made, but they look nice, so. But they won't be the same kind of custom kind that you're making, because you will be making custom vestments. You know, the priest will say he'll be short, he'll be tall, he'll want a particular color, he'll want a particular design, you know, applique, you know, it's his devotion to our Our Lady of Chasuble or whatever, and want a vestment for that. All right, so this is now ready to be sewn. Again, you're going to sew both edges, not just one down the middle of this, both edges. But that it's very easy. There'll be 2 stitches, 2 rows of stitches on the back. Again, you want to use the matching bobbin thread. For this, it didn't matter because it's on the inside, but for this, you'll have to match bobbin thread. See what I mean about pinholes? But this curves out here, and I'm going to cut this off because again, I want it only this wide. So all this extra I can cut off. I'm going to chalk it just to show you that. Probably a smarter way to go. I know I can eyeball cut it, but this is in class. So this is where I want the trim to lie when it's finished. And I don't care about the lining. It's the main fabric I want to make sure I've got. So I'm going to put the ruler right on top of it to hold the trim in place where I want it. And then I'm going to run chalk along that edge. And then I'm going to cut the chalk off. So it has this pretty straight edge there, and here it's not straight. Alright, so, and this should be wide enough for the trim. Actually, I can cut it a little bit more. I can't do this sitting down. I have to, so that you can see it. I'm going to have to stand up and block your view. And I don't worry a lot about frays. First of all, if you don't move the fabric very much, you don't get a lot of frays. But even though I do have some frayed edges, it's gonna get closed in by the lining. And you're not really sewing up close to those frays. You're gonna be sewing on top. The lining is actually, like flat here. It's actually between the lining and the main fabric and the trim. So you don't really have to worry much about them. I know people who, when they sew, see a little fray, they go cut it off. Actually, I think it makes more frays by cutting them off. Just leave them until, if they're in your way at the end, then cut them. But most of the time, they won't be in your way. They're going to be closed out of the way, and then they're not hurting anyone. All right. I do this, and then I'm going to do the neckline up here. And there's several types of necklines. This curved one. There's also one that goes straight like a V, which you could, you can cut it in to here. But because of this trim, and I want the other trim to go around the edge, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to have a curved neckline. And if you wanted the V, you should have cut the V when you had your main fabric before you put your trims on. But I had planned to have this curve, so it didn't matter to me. If you look at some of the vestment pictures in the gallery that I put on the CD, you'll see some of them may have that V-neck. Some of them have other type of necks, but it's